All right, welcome back to Adobe Lightroom Classic. And in the last video, we took a look at what we call global adjustments. Today, we're going to take a look at something that's a lot more important when it comes to learning to adjust your image, and that is what we call selective adjustments. A global adjustment lets you make an adjustment and it affects the whole aspect of the image. Well, most of the time, we don't want that. We want to apply an adjustment just to a specific area. So we do that by using what we call mask. And the great thing is in Lightroom, they used to do it different, but Photoshop uses the same concept of layers and masks. Learning this is going to help you down the road if you decide to go and start learning Adobe Photoshop. So today we're going to take a look at how to make selective adjustments. And we're going to do this in a two-part series because you're going to be shocked at how complicated this can be. So I'm going to show you the basic gist, create a mask and how they work. And then in the second part, we'll take a look at like the linear gradients, the radial gradients, selecting people and items that are more specific. All right, so let's slide on over to Photoshop. All right, so we have this photo of this woman. And if you remember last time, we were in the develop module up here, and these are our global adjustments. Well, what happens if I just want to select subject and make an adjustment? We do that with what's called masking. And so if we come on over here, this is our little masking icon, the circle with the little dots around it. And we're going to go ahead and click that. And that's going to bring up a new window. And this window makes selections in one of two ways. One is a manual selection, and the other is using artificial intelligence. So most of what we're going to take a look at today are the artificial intelligence and the brush. So if we come up here, you'll notice we can make a selection by the subject, which makes a lot of sense here. We could do the sky. Well, we don't have a sky, so that's not going to work. Or we could select the background, which would work perfectly here, but we want to select our subject. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and boom, just like that, you can see we've got this kind of red color over our subject, and that is showing us what aspect or area of the image has been selected. And if we come on over here, we can make an adjustment in that area. We can make her brighter or we can make her darker by sliding any of these sliders or adjustments around. How did Photoshop make that adjustment? What it used is what we call a mask. And a mask is really simple, but I think it's a little bit difficult for people to understand, and it might take you a couple weeks to understand it fully. But basically what happens is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click Show Overlay. And that was that red overlay that we got at the beginning. All right. So this is showing us the selection. But the way a mask works is we have a bunch of different ways to view it. We're going to view it on white and black because this is how a mask works. Wherever you have white is where you're going to see the adjustment. Whatever you do over here, it's only going to happen in the white. Where it's black, it hides it. So that's essentially all a mask is doing. It's determining in the image what area you see the adjustment and which area you hide the adjustment. So in this case, the woman is white. We'll see it out here. It's black. We're not going to see it there. We have right here, we have the color overlay view. So this is just showing us where the mask is. If we come up to the three little dots, you'll see right here, and I click that, we can view this in a variety of ways. There's no right way or wrong way. You can just toggle through them and pick the one that you like the best. So for me, the color overlay in black and white works the best as far as teaching and doing these tutorials. When I work, I basically only use the color overlay. But we could do a color overlay on black and white. We can do an image on black and white. I'm not going to do them all. An image on black, an image on white, white and black that we saw before. So we're going to go up here to color overlay. If you want to change the color, you could come up here to where it's red. We'll click on that. I could make this green if I wanted to make it green. In this case, I'm just going to keep it red because it's simple and we're good to go. If we want to see the selection, we want to make sure show overlay is checked. If I want it to go away because it's driving me nuts, I can hide that. It's still going to have the adjustment in it. You're just not seeing the selection anymore. So that's how we make a basic selection. So let's go on over to another image. So we have this image of this woman. We are in the develop module. And in this case, let's go ahead and use the background selection tool. So we will just assume that in this image, for some reason, we want to adjust the background. So to make that selection, we will come on over here to the masking icon. I will click on that. And right over here, we've got the background option. I'm going to select. And yeah, it did a pretty good job, but it's selecting the chair because look, it can't always differentiate between what is a background and what is the foreground. So in this, it recognized the object is different and it recognized the subject, but we don't want it to select the chair. But for right now, we're going to leave it there because I think that's okay. So if we want to see that mask, we can come and look at black and white. So where it's white, it's going to show the adjustment. Where it's black, it's going to hide the adjustment. And it also works in grays. So if you wanted part of the adjustment to happen in this area, let's say we made this area 50% gray, we would see 50% of the adjustment in this area. But in this case, I want to paint this completely black because I want to hide the adjustment from this area. I just want it in the background. So if we want to modify our selection, we can either add or subtract. So you'll see right up here, we've got an add, and right over here, we've got subtract. In this case, I want to add the black, so we actually need to use subtract. If I wanted to add, which is white, I would do that there, but we want to add black. So we're going to click subtract, and then I'm going to come down here. We can do this by a bunch of different methods. We can do select subject, select sky, background, people, objects, brush, and so on. We want brush because we're going to manually do this. Now, you have to understand how to use the brush. So the brush setting is right here. We have the ability to adjust the size, the feather, the flow, and the density. For right now, forget about flow and density. It's just going to make your life too complicated. All we want to focus on is size and feather. So I'm going to take the feather and move it all the way down. All right. And I can slide this and make the brush bigger. I can also use the wheel on my mouse to make the brush bigger, smaller. I can also use the bracket keys next to the letter P. The bracket key right next to P, the left bracket, is going to make it smaller, and the right bracket is going to make it larger. Okay. I can control that size. Now, feather softens the edge of the brush. So what I'm going to do is just paint into this adjustment. And notice how hard that edge is right there. Well, watch what happens if I increase the feather of this brush. All right, so now it's at 50%. You can see it's fading it out. This works really good when you're just trying to make an adjustment like on a face and you want to blend it in so that you can't see where it stops and starts. Most of the time, you want feather. And in my case, I usually have the feather at about 50%. This goes really strong. So this is a really strong feather at 100%. And I think that's too strong for most adjustments. So usually if I have a feather, it's on 50%. In this case, I'm going to lower it because I want a harder adjustment. So I'm going to just go back out of that. So we're going to hit the subtract again. I'm going to hit brush, and then I'm just going to go ahead and apply that to this location. So this is going to take that adjustment out of that location. Now I can't see where the arm of the chair is over here. So we're going to get rid of the overlay, and I'm just going to manually come in here and do that. You just have to assume that that's working. I can go to color overlay and select that so you can see what I'm doing. So basically I took that adjustment out of that location. So now when I come down here and I make an adjustment, whether I'm darkening or I'm changing the color of that background, it's only happening in the location where there is white in the mask, where there's black in the mask. It's hiding that adjustment. Now you can see right here, I didn't do a perfect job, and that's okay because this process is what we call non-destructive. We can go back and edit it at any time because every time we do something, Lightroom automatically saves it. As long as we don't delete the data from LR data or the XMP file, we should be good. So most people aren't going to be doing that, so we should be okay. So we can modify or refine that. So if I need to add this area back, I can come up here to the add symbol. I can click that, hit brush, and I can be more accurate when I do this. And I'm going to make my brush smaller. It is the white brush in the center, and I can just add that back. Normally I would zoom in so I can see what I'm doing, but that's pretty good. We'll just skip that spot for right now. So you can constantly add and subtract, and refine that mask to get it exactly perfect. All right, so that looks pretty good. So that's how we do addition and subtractions in a mask. We can either paint into or take away from by either adding white or black to a mask. So let's take a look at this image here. And so this is going to be a more logical approach to this. So let's say we wanted to brighten the face of some of these people, but not all of these people. I could come on up here to where I have my mask icon. I'm going to select that. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and use that brush right there, because though we could have it select people's faces, this is just going to be a lot easier. I'm going to increase my brush. I'm going to make my feather larger. And look, this adjustment isn't going to be very strong. And the people that have faces that are a little dark, I'm just going to go ahead and apply a mask to them. And I'm doing that just by kind of painting into their face. I don't need her forehead. This little kid here, that side of his face. And let's say that's all I want. Well, then I can come in and make that adjustment in those locations. So I just want to lighten it a little teeny bit. And you can see I've only brightened it a little bit. All right. So I'm making that a selective adjustment in those locations. So what does that mask look like? Well, it looks like this. It's being applied in the white areas and not in the black areas. Okay. So let's go ahead and go back to color overlay. Let's say I want to make another adjustment. Well, this is really simple. If I want to make a new adjustment, and in this case, I'm going to darken these white shoes because they're a little bit too bright. We can come up here to create a new mask. And there's no number of masks that you're limited to. You can keep creating as many of these masks as you want. So I'm going to hit the plus. It's going to ask me, well, what kind of a mask do I want? Once again, I'm going to do brush. And then I'm going to come in here and make my brush very small. And I'm going to paint into the white areas of these shoes. Get that one as well. And I can say, oh, that looks good. And then I'm just going to lower the contrast, highlights, and exposure and just darken those shoes up a little bit. So I've made another adjustment to this photo by creating a secondary mask. Now, there are some other options that you can do to masks. So let's go to this image here. And let's say that I want to brighten our subject up in this image. Well, we can come on over here and click on Select Subject. It analyzed and selected our subject, which is great. And we can make her a little bit brighter. However, what if we want to now do something, make the background black and white? Well, that's something we could do. And we could do that by creating a new mask and selecting the background. Or we could just come up here. Next to the mask, these three little dots, an eyeball. The eyeball lets you turn it on and off so you can see what you did. But you also can select these three little dots. And in that, we can invert our mask. So right now, the white part is on the subject. If I hit invert, now you can see the white part is on the background. So invert will select the opposite. In this case, we don't want that. So what we want to do is create a duplicate mask and invert it. So we'll make a new mask and select the background. We can do that by coming in here and selecting duplicate and invert mask. So if I select that, it creates a new mask for me, but it inverts it. So this time the background is selected. So I can come in here and I can just remove the saturation. And now we have our subject on a black background. And we did that by doing we did that by duplicate and inverting the mask. Now, look, in Photoshop, in any Adobe program, there's a million different ways to do the same thing. We could have also come in here and did create mask and select background and check that out. doing the same thing. It's just a different way to do it. The reason I showed you that is so that you understand that those three little dots that we see right here have things that we can do to it. So we can duplicate a mask, we can hide a mask, and we can also delete a mask or delete all masks. So let's go to a different image. So we're going to take a look at one last option today for masking and making selections, and that is the sky selection tool. So when you're in the global adjustments, you'll come up here, click on the masking icon, and right here we have the ability to select the sky. The computer is going to do a pretty good job. It's going to select the sky there, and then I can come in here and I can adjust that sky's value by sliding it out. That is select by sky. It works exactly the same. We can add or subtract to that mask. We could invert and duplicate if we wanted, but that's how you use the sky selection mask. So we're going to stop right here because I don't want this to get too complicated today. So what I would like you to do is play around and make as many selective adjustments as you can inside Lightroom until you fully understand how it works. In the next video, we'll take a look at the rest of the selective adjustments that are available inside of masking in Adobe Lightroom. If you found this video helpful and could give us a thumbs up, that would be great. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below. Don't forget to subscribe and have an absolutely wonderful day.